Close your eyes and let yourself drift. You are no longer lying in your bed, no longer listening to the faint hum of the modern world outside your window. Instead, you are stepping into a different place, a different time and age where life moves slowly, and the rhythm of every day is guided not by clocks or machines, but by bells and silence. The morning air is cool, damp with a trace of mist, and before you stands a tall stone wall. It rises out of the quiet countryside like something both ancient and enduring, strong enough to keep out the noise of the world. A narrow wooden gate, bound with iron, opens just wide enough for you to pass through. As you step across the threshold, you are leaving behind the village paths and the chatter of merchants, the cries of children, the restless sound of daily life. Inside, you enter another world, a monastery, a place built not for hurry or noise, but for order, calm, and prayer. At first, you notice the hush. The silence feels heavy, yet not oppressive. It presses softly against your skin like a wool cloak, wrapping you in something protective and solemn. The grass beneath your feet is wet with dew, the kind that sparkles faintly as the dawn light begins to push its way across the horizon. You can hear your footsteps echo against the stone cloisters, each sound magnified because there is nothing else competing. No cartwheels, no voices, only the steady breath of the morning. The architecture itself draws your eyes upward. The monastery walls are not ornate like the great cathedrals you may have imagined. Here, everything is plain, deliberate, and strong. The stones are rough in some places, smoothed in others where countless hands and robes have brushed against them over generations. Arched windows cut narrow slits into the walls, designed not to dazzle but to remind you of humility. This is not a palace, it is a sanctuary. You take a few steps further, and suddenly the scent of incense lingers faintly in the air, drifting from the chapel, where a few candles already burn though the sun has not yet risen. Their glow flickers against the stained glass, dim at this hour but carrying a quiet warmth. Somewhere, in a corner of the courtyard, a monk moves slowly, sweeping fallen leaves into a neat pile. He does not greet you with words. Instead, he lowers his head, acknowledging you with silence, a reminder that speech is rationed carefully here, as though every word must carry weight. The quiet does not feel empty, it feels alive. It feels like water resting in a deep well, still on the surface, but filled with hidden depths. You realize that in this place, the day does not belong to you alone. It belongs to a greater rhythm, one set long before you arrived. As you continue walking, you pass under the cloister arches that line the courtyard. The pillars are simple but sturdy, their surfaces chipped by centuries of weather and time. Ivy clings to the stone, its green threads creeping upward as though they too are searching for heaven. The air smells of damp stone, old wood, and earth freshly turned in the gardens beyond. Birds perch along the roof beams, singing softly as if they, too, are part of the prayerful stillness. You reach the heart of the courtyard, a square of grass bordered by gravel paths. At its center stands a single stone fountain, worn smooth by countless years of water spilling from its mouth. The trickle is soft, soothing, like the steady breath of the monastery itself. You pause there, listening. In the stillness, you begin to notice the subtler sounds, the rustle of robes in the distance, the creak of wooden doors opening, the faint footsteps of men, rising for prayer before the world outside has even woken. Time itself seems different here. It does not rush. It does not demand. Instead, it folds around you gently, as though inviting you to let go of the burdens you carried through the gate. The walls do not imprison. They shelter. Inside them, the world feels slowed, softened, reshaped into something deliberate. You begin to feel as though you are no longer just a visitor. The longer you walk beneath these arches, the more the cloister begins to claim you. The air is cooler here, yet somehow warmer in spirit. The stones beneath your hand feel solid, ancient. as though holding memories of the many who walked before you, sons who took vows, noblemen who renounced their wealth, travelers who found refuge. Each footstep you take joins the echoes of theirs. And then you hear it, the low, resonant toll of the monastery bell. It rings not an alarm, not to stir chaos, but to call, to summon, to gently draw every soul toward the same rhythm. The sound carries across the stone courtyard, deep and patient, vibrating through your chest. It is a sound that will mark every hour, every task, every prayer. In this place, you realize the bell is not just an instrument. It is the heartbeat of life itself. A monk in a dark robe passes quietly in front of you, his hood drawn, his face pale in the dim dawn light. He does not speak, but his presence feels like an answer to questions you did not know you were asking. He gestures toward the chapel door, and you follow. Though your steps are hesitant, inside candles burn, their flames bending slightly with the draft of the open door. Wooden pews stretch in rows, polished by years of devotion, and the air is thick with the mingled scents of wax and incense. You slip inside, and the door closes gently behind you. The outside world falls away completely, and all that remains is this: the glow of flickering light, the shadows dancing against stone walls, and the deep silence that feels almost alive. Somewhere, faint chanting, steady voices rising together like the sound of distant waves. You cannot understand every word, but you do not need to. The rhythm itself wraps around you, carrying you deeper into the monastery's embrace. Here, at the beginning of the day, you are no longer an outsider looking in. You are part of the story now, part of this slow, patient world where each hour is measured not by haste, but by prayer, work, and the turning of the sun. You are here, inside the cloister walls. And once you step fully into this life, there is no rushing back. And so you let yourself sink into the quiet, surrendering to the rhythm of the monastery as the first true light of morning begins to rise. Beyond the walls, sound comes again, deep and unhurried, a voice made of bronze and air. The monastery bell rings, not once, not twice, but in a steady rhythm that rolls across the stone walls and drifts into the still dawn. It is not a sound of urgency. It does not hurry you or demand you run. Instead, it gathers you, pulls you gently into the stream of life here. You understand now why the monks call it the heartbeat of the cloister. With every toll, the day begins to move. You follow the sound through the shadowed hallways. The stones beneath your feet are cool, and the corridors echo faintly as other monks emerge from their cells. They appear one by one, silent figures in dark robes, hoods lowered, their steps measured and calm. No one pushes forward. No one lingers behind. All move together, as if drawn by a thread of invisible order toward the chapel. The bell continues, and you realize it does more than summon. It sets the rhythm of the day. It is the dividing line between sleep and waking, rest and work, silence and prayer. Beyond these walls, the world might mark time by the rising of the sun or the clamor of markets. But here, every moment is bound to the ringing of the bell. You feel yourself slipping into its rhythm too. Your own breath slows to match it, and as you walk, you begin to notice details that might have slipped by unnoticed. The wooden beams overhead, darkened with centuries of smoke and candlelight. The flicker of torch flames and iron sconces, casting golden pools of light along the stone. The faint shuffle of sandals on the worn floor, all of it moves in harmony with the bell. As you approach the chapel doors, you notice carvings in the heavy wood simple crosses, vines curling into patterns, faint symbols that have almost worn away from touch and time. Your hand brushes over them, and the surface feels smooth, polished by countless monks who have pushed these doors open at the same hour for generations. The bell tolls again, and the door creaks open. A breath of cool air slips out, carrying with it the mingled scent of incense and wax. Inside, the space is dim, lit only by candles and the faintest hint of dawn pressing against colored glass. The monks file in ahead of you, their movements quiet, unbroken. Each bows before stepping toward his place. The gesture not rushed but slow, deliberate, like the flowing of water. You follow, slipping into the stillness of the chapel. The bell outside gives its final toll and then stops. The silence it leaves behind is not empty. It is charged, humming with expectation. The room feels suspended, as though time itself has paused, waiting for what comes next. Notice how each man seems at peace, his hands folded loosely in front of him. They are not restless, not eager for what comes next, because the rhythm is already known, already written. You are the only newcomer here, the only one who still feels the edges of curiosity and wonder. Then, softly, the first voice rises. A single note, low and steady, floating into the air like a thread of smoke. Another voice joins, then another, until the sound becomes a weave of tones, layered but simple. The chant does not climb high or tumble into complexity. It holds steady, like the turning of the earth, patient and unbroken. You let the sound wash over you. It is not meant to entertain or impress. It is not a performance. It is prayer made into music, words carried upward, echoing through the stone arches above. The Latin syllables fall gently, unfamiliar yet soothing, each one stretched into tones that seem to dissolve the boundaries between you and the silence. As you listen, you feel your own thoughts begin to slow. The worries you carried through the gate this morning, the questions about time and duty, begin to fade. In their place is only the chant, the steady breath of men who have lived this rhythm for years, decades, lifetimes. You realize that in this place, the day is not a race to be run, but a river to be entered, slow and deep. The monks chant in unison, their voices blending until it becomes impossible to tell where one ends and another begins. They are not many men singing, but one body of sound, one spirit lifted. The effect is almost hypnotic, pulling you into the current of the moment until you feel as though you have always been here, waking at this hour, answering this bell. After some time, the chant ends, the last note fading slowly into silence. The pause that follows feels almost as important as the music itself, as if the quiet is the true destination, and the chant was only a path leading you there. The air feels thick with stillness, and you find yourself breathing more deeply, almost unconsciously. Then, without signal or command, the monks rise together. Robes sway gently, sandals scrape lightly against the stone floor. They bow once more, then begin to move back into the corridors. No one speaks, no one lingers. The bell has rung, the prayers have been sung, and the first act of the day is complete. You step out with them, back into the early light of morning. The sky has shifted while you were inside. The blackness of night has softened into a pale blue, streaked with the first blush of sunrise. Birds have begun their songs, and the air is cooler now, touched by a faint breeze that carries the scent of grass and wet earth. The bell does not ring again yet. Its rhythm will guide you from prayer to work, from work to meals, from meals to rest, and finally back to prayer again. It will be the thread that ties the day together, hour by hour, moment by moment. You walk with the monks across the courtyard, your steps naturally falling into the same pace as theirs. The silence is no longer strange to you. It feels right, like part of the music of this place. You realize the bell has already begun to change you, not with force, not with command, but with its slow, patient call. And as the day stretches forward, waiting to unfold, you feel yourself surrender to it, ready to be carried wherever its rhythm leads. The air is still heavy with night as you step once more into the chapel. Outside, the sky has only just begun to soften, a faint blue hidden behind the last veil of stars. Inside, the world is darker still, filled with flickering candlelight and the low breath of men gathered in silence. It is the hour of matins, the first prayers of the day, and you are here too. Enter that quiet stream of devotion that has flowed in this place for centuries. The wooden stalls creak faintly as monks settle into their places. Each man bows his head, folds his hands, and lowers his gaze, not toward the floor, but somewhere deeper into the stillness of his own heart. You feel the hush gather around you, as if the walls themselves are listening. It is a silence so complete that even the sound of your breath seems to echo too loudly. The first note rises again, a single voice cutting through the dark. It is not sharp or sudden. It comes like a thread, drawn slowly, patiently into the air. Then another voice joins, and another, until the chanting begins, steady and deliberate. This is no performance, no display meant to stir applause. It is the lifting of words toward heaven, a river of sound flowing upward into the rafters where shadows gather like clouds. The Latin syllables are strange to your ears, but you find yourself swaying gently with their rhythm. The chant does not rush. It lingers on each word, stretching time until the very minutes seem to dissolve. The melody is plain, almost austere, yet within its simplicity lies a hypnotic calm that draws your mind away from everything beyond these walls. You glance at the monks around you. Their faces are illuminated softly by candlelight, eyes half closed. They are not individuals here. They are one body, one voice, breathing together, singing together, praying together. It is as though their lives, their very selves, have melted into the rhythm of this place. You realize that to live here is not simply to exist inside walls of stone. It is to become part of a living pattern, repeated day after day, year after year, until time itself feels like prayer. The sound grows, not louder, but fuller, filling every corner of the chapel. The vaulted ceiling gathers the chant and returns it, soft and echoing, as if unseen voices join in from beyond. You close your eyes and let yourself sink into it. The world outside villages, fields, markets, castles fades into mist. Here there is only the candle glow, the rhythm of voices, and the quiet weight of devotion pressing gently into your heart. You begin to notice the other sounds hidden within the chant. The crackle of candle wicks, the faint shuffle of feet as monks shift in their stalls, the soft rustle of woolen robes brushing against wood. These tiny noises do not disturb the silence. They belong to it. They are like ripples on a still pond, each one part of the larger stillness that surrounds you. As the chanting continues, you feel time stretching. The minutes lose their sharp edges. You cannot tell how long you have been here, whether moments or hours. That is the secret of matins. It is not bound to time, but to timelessness. It carries you out of the restless measure of seconds and into something slower, deeper, where each breath feels like part of eternity. At one point, the chanting fades into a pause. The silence that follows is vast, a silence you feel in your bones. It is not emptiness. It is presence, something greater, larger, waiting. The monks bow their heads lower, and you follow, eyes closed, body still. In that silence, you sense what they know, that sometimes the truest prayer is not words, but quiet, the act of listening. Then the voices rise again, steady and sure, weaving the same simple patterns of sound. They sing psalms, readings, lines repeated over centuries, so many times that they are carved not only into parchment, but into memory itself. The words do not need to be new. They need only to be faithful, as constant as the turning of the earth. Gradually, you begin to feel the chill of the chapel seep into your hands, into your feet, though you hardly notice it. The air smells of stone, wax, and faint incense. Shadows shift across the walls as candles gutter, their flames bending with unseen drafts. Each flicker feels like part of the rhythm, as though even fire joins the prayer. Your thoughts wander, but the chant gently gathers them back, again and again. It is like being carried down a slow river. You do not need to steer. You do not need to struggle. You only need to let yourself drift. After a time long or perhaps very short, the chant begins to soften. The voices lower, the notes stretch into silence. The final words fall into the still air, and then all is quiet once more. The silence that follows feels deeper than before, as if the chanting has hollowed out a space within you, making room for peace. The monks remain bowed for a moment longer, breathing slowly, their bodies motionless in the flickering light. Then, gently, they rise. The benches creak softly, sandals scrape against stone, and one by one they begin to move. Still, no words are spoken. Speech will come later, in measured fragments. But for now, silence remains the true language of the cloister. You follow them out of the chapel. The doors open, and the dawn greets you, brighter now. The sky tinged with pale gold. The air is cold against your skin, but it feels fresh, alive. Birds are singing louder in the trees beyond the walls, as though the world itself is answering the prayers you have just left behind. The monks walk calmly across the courtyard, their pace unhurried, their steps almost identical. They move as though carried by the same current, the same unseen rhythm that has guided this place for centuries. You feel yourself moving with them, absorbed into the flow. Behind you, the chapel doors close softly, sealing in the last glow of candlelight, the last whisper of chant. Ahead of you, the day is waiting to unfold, ours marked not by haste, but by bells, by prayer, by work, each one flowing into the next like water into water. You realize now that Matins was not an event to check off, not a task to be finished. It was a beginning, the gentle stirring of a day shaped not by desire or demand, but by devotion. And as the sun climbs higher, still hidden behind the cloister walls, you feel the rhythm of this life drawing you in more deeply. Step by step, prayer by prayer, the prayers have ended, and you step once more into the pale morning light. The sky has lifted into a softer blue now, streaked with a faint gold where the sun edges slowly upward. The courtyard glistens with dew, and every blade of grass seems touched by a thin thread of silver. The world is waking, but here, inside the monastery walls, it wakes differently, gently, deliberately, wrapped in silence. You notice the silence more now than before. It is not the empty hush of an abandoned place, nor the uneasy quiet of waiting. It is something alive, shaped carefully by discipline. It is a silence chosen, a silence kept like treasure. Every monk you pass moves without speaking. They walk with measured steps, their heads lowered slightly, hands folded within their robes. Their sandals scrape softly against stone, yet no words rise, no casual laughter, no chatter to break the stillness. As you wander beneath the arches of the cloister, you begin to feel the weight of this quiet. The corridor is lined with simple stone pillars, each one casting shadows across the path as sunlight slips slowly into the square. The silence makes even the smallest sound stand out. Faint flutter of a bird landing on the fountain, the distant creak of a wooden door, the drip of water falling from the roof where last night's rain has left its mark. Your own footsteps sound louder than you expect, echoing gently in the long corridor. For a moment, you almost hold your breath, afraid of disturbing the peace. And then you realize this is the way silence works here. It makes you aware, makes you cautious, makes you slow down enough to hear what is usually hidden. The stillness itself teaches you how to move, how to listen. The cloister walk curves around the courtyard, forming a square where monks pass quietly on their way to duties. Some carry tools, others carry books, but none speak. A few glance at you briefly, nodding slightly in acknowledgement, and then lower their eyes again, continuing their path. Each gesture is small, careful, as though they have learned how to let even silence become communication. The fountain at the center trickles steadily, the only true voice allowed to sing freely here. Its sound is gentle but constant, like a prayer without words. You find yourself drawn to it, standing near the edge, watching the water spill from its worn mouth into the basin below. The surface ripples softly, catching bits of light as the sun grows brighter. The monks pay it no attention, but to you, it feels like a companion, something speaking in a language too soft to disturb, yet too steady to ignore. As you continue your walk, you notice the gardens beyond the cloister walls. Rows of herbs and vegetables stretch neatly, each bed cared for with patient hands. A faint fragrance of rosemary and thyme drifts into the air. Even here, where life grows wild, silence remains. The monks who tend the gardens move like shadows, bending to the soil, their tools cutting quietly into the earth. You realize that silence here is not absence, it is presence. It is not about what is missing, but what is allowed to stay. In silence, you hear the creak of wooden beams above, the fair caw of a crow perched on the wall, the soft sigh of wind slipping through the cloister arches. Each sound that does appear feels magnified, made important simply by being alone. The longer you remain in this quiet, the more your own thoughts begin to soften. At first, you hear the noise of your own mind, the questions, the comparisons, the restless voices of the world outside, but slowly these fade too, like ripples smoothing on a pond. You find yourself breathing more evenly, your steps falling in rhythm with the stillness. You are no longer a visitor, simply observing silence. You are part of it, folded gently into its fabric. A monk passes you, carrying a small bundle of firewood. His robe brushes against the floor, his sandals whisper as he walks. He meets your eyes for a moment, and though he says nothing, you feel acknowledged, included, as though silence itself has introduced you. You nod slightly in return, and he continues on his way, disappearing into a doorway without a sound. The cloister walls themselves seem to breathe with this stillness. Their stones are heavy, solid, shaped by centuries, yet they do not weigh down the air. Instead, they cradle it, holding the silence the way cupped hands hold water. You run your fingers along one pillar, and the surface is cool and rough. You think of all the hands that must have touched it before, countless generations of monks walking this same path in silence, each one carried into the same rhythm, each one shaped by the same hush. There is comfort in knowing that silence has been kept here for hundreds of years. Outside these walls, kingdoms have risen and fallen, wars have been fought, villages have been built and burned. Yet within the cloister, this same hush has been preserved. It is like a thread running unbroken through time, connecting you to all who came before. You pause near one of the arches and look out toward the horizon. Beyond the monastery walls, you can see fields stretching into the distance, dotted with trees and the faint outline of distant cottages. From here, the world looks small, quiet too, though you know beyond the walls life is louder, rougher, hurried, and yet, within the cloister, that world feels far away, softened by the boundary of stone and silence. The bell will ring again soon, you know. It will summon the monks to their next duty, the next prayer, the next labor. But until then, the silence remains unbroken, wrapping you gently, guiding you through the still corridors. It is not an emptiness you wish to escape, it is a calm you wish to keep, a stillness that feels like being held. And so you continue walking, your footsteps light, your breath slow, the hush of the cloister sinking deeper into you with every step.